Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Vault Jersey. Joe Archino back here. No one really steals the spotlight from America on the 4th of July, but Kevin Durant really did his best to try to do that. And of course the media and everyone has been consumed by his decision where, of course, he has decided that the Golden State Warriors are going to be the team that he decides to join next. And it's one of those things where everyone has an opinion on it. A lot of people are locking the Warriors in to be the favorites to win the title next season. From what I'm reading, a lot of people are penciling this team in to be maybe the greatest team of all time. But I think those kind of assumptions and making those predictions is a little bit early. The way I look at this is, look, a lot of people are criticizing Durant for the way that he's doing them. Kind of the typical phrase that's coming out is, if you can't beat him, join him. I really don't care where anybody goes. I don't think it was a big deal when LeBron went to the Heat, and I don't think it's a big deal when Durant goes to the Warriors. They both had different reasons for going. I think LeBron's, if you're trying to defend the two of them, LeBron's reasons for leaving were much more understandable than Durant's, because Durant's going from a team where he has a pretty good amount of talent around him to just the team with the most amount of talent, and LeBron left a team that he had carried for so long and just couldn't do it anymore. But that's not really what we're here to discuss. I think the question that needs to be asked before anything else is are the Warriors now too big to fail with Durant added to this team? Now, it just basically has come out that Harrison Barnes is going to the Mavs, and then the Warriors are going to trade Andrew Bogut to the Mavs as well. That won't be official until July 7th, but it's going to happen. So when we look at the Warriors now, I'll be honest, the first thing that comes to mind for me is I think it's going to be really hard for these guys to all learn to play together. When you look at the Warriors, I think they're forgoing a little bit of balance here. You have Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, who unquestionably are the Splash Brothers, and we know everything that they've done, maybe with the most prolific, dynamic three-point shooting backcourt we've ever seen. It's hard to argue against that. But now you bring in a guy like Kevin Durant, and Klay Thompson and Curry, as it is, they operate by getting their shots. Now you throw a third guy in there who plays the same type of game. Where are you going to get all these shots from? How are these guys all going to mesh? How are they going to compensate for one another? Because we know that they all do play the same way, and I look at it and they really do forego that balance, and great players always find ways to adapt, but when your styles are all that similar, I worry that you're going to have a very difficult time. And when you're matching up against a team like the Cavaliers, we look at Game 7, and in Cleveland, I mean, it was such a discrepancy in Game 7, the beginning of that game. Cleveland could not shoot for their life in the beginning of that game until J.R. Smith hit one, and even then, they really didn't have any luck with the three ball. Where they did their damage in that game was in the paint, and in the inside, I think without Bogut now, and losing Bogut certainly is not the end of the world because he's not really an offensive presence as it is, but the Warriors are going to struggle to establish an inside game. And when you have to constantly be getting the ball in these shooters' hands, well, how are you going to compensate? How are you going to work it? Who's going to be getting the shots? How are you going to let it just flow naturally where it's not one guy's night one night? I mean, I thought it was very interesting the other day hearing Jimmy Butler talk on Colin Cowherd's show, and he basically said that one of the problems that he thought with Rose, he didn't say this directly, but you could kind of read into it, was some nights it would be his night, some night it would be Rose's night, and that's not the way that the NBA works. The NBA works in sync, in rhythm. You have to let the game come naturally. And I just think sometimes when you look at a situation like this, that's something that's going to be difficult to do. How are you going to naturally let the ball flow and just let these guys work and operate? Now, I really don't doubt Kevin Durant's talents to make it work with other people for a minute. Steph Curry is a guy where I do think it's interesting. We know that he has kind of emerged as the face of the NBA these past two seasons. LeBron really has claimed it back this summer with winning his title for Cleveland. But there's no question that Steph Curry in the younger demographic's mind has kind of emerged as the go-to face of the league with his past two MVPs, winning a title and then getting back to the finals this season. One of the most prolific scorer in the league. But Now when I look at it, I look back in February where this kind of all started, where the Durant to the Warriors storyline started. February 2nd, Yahoo Sports releases an article. Adrian Wojnarowski basically outlines it, where the Warriors this summer are going to make it a strong push for Durant. There's mutual interest on both sides. And then we look at where we stand today on the 4th of July. We look back at that February 2nd story. That all looked true then, and it really did come into fruition now. But when we look back at it, I always thought, well, how's Curry going to react to this? Golden State's already as good as it is. They have the best regular season record of all time. They already have such a good team. What would Durant really do to improve what's already the best team on paper in the league? Well, when we looked at it on February 4th, there was a Q&A with an ESPN article and Stephen Curry. And basically the question that was asked to Curry was, I won't make you say his name, but there are rumors your team might pursue a certain star free agent. You guys are 41-4 or 42-4 or whatever. Do you hear those rumors and think, wait a second, how much better could we possibly get? Why change anything? And then Curry's answer to that was, not in those terms. I hear that stuff and it's human nature to be interested in it. I'm very comfortable with our team and obviously being 44-4. And I think even more interesting was the same day that article came out on February 4th, 2 days after the Yahoo Sports article about Durant joining the Warriors came out, Steph Curry goes out that night and he drops 51 points against the Wizards, has an incredible game, hits 7 3-pointers in the first half. So I looked at that whole situation, and especially Stephen Curry's answer where he said, I'm very comfortable with our team. And I saw that as Curry doesn't want to give up the spotlight. Curry doesn't want, it's Curry's team. It's Curry's league now. Why would he want another star player like that to steal the spotlight from him? Especially another guy who honestly has a better total game than he does. Maybe not as prolific a scorer as he is, but when you talk about rebounding in defense, Durant is a much better total player than Curry is. So when I looked at that, I think, man, and even in the recruiting pitch, we know now that Andre Iguodala is probably the strongest Golden State recruiter for basically Stephen Curry over to the Warriors. Klay Thompson was a strong one as well. You don't hear Stephen Curry's name as vocal in that regard, and I think Stephen Curry is a guy who will make it work. He's not a selfish player, but I do think at times Stephen Curry wants this to be his team. Stephen Curry wants this to be his league. And I think sometimes, you don't know if any kind of, the two of them might be rub each other the wrong way. Now, Durant is a guy who's able to get along with anybody, and I think even with Westbrook, where we saw early in their career, there was they rubbed each other the wrong way at times. They certainly were able to smooth things over, and that's just the kind of guy Durant is. Curry's not a troublemaker as well, but I think you have to go back and look at the events on February 2nd and February 4th. Curry's response to me symbolized something. This is my team. This is my league. I don't need a Kevin Durant to help me win titles. But now Kevin Durant is his teammate, and it will certainly be interesting to see how it does work out. But I think for anyone who thinks that it's just a easy lock to put this team as NBA champions tomorrow, I think you're going a little bit overboard. I mean, look, should they be the title favorites? Yes. I mean, that roster on paper is the best in the league. But it's going to be very hard for them to learn to play together. Again, when you forego balance for shooting, and there's only one ball, remember, folks. There's one ball, and I don't know how they're going to be able to make all these guys who need the ball and need their shots to be effective to play that way. Now, Durant can play inside, but he is strongest playing around from the outside, and I think that's the same thing with Klay Thompson, and that's the same thing with Stephen Curry. So the bulk of your team is built one way now. You've really surrendered your inside abilities, and I do think at the end of the day that might be one of the reasons why this whole thing is too big to fail. And you never know. Certainly there's a lot more time. There's a lot more dominoes that need to fall, but I think right now it's a little bit early to kind of pencil them in as the greatest team of all time. And certainly it is interesting, though, and it has made this 4th of July even more fun to discuss. But until next time, Jersey, Joe Archino here at the Sports Vault. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino. And I'll see everybody next time.